Good morning, everyone. This morning we are here with Erin Fleming. Thanks a lot for being here with us. And we're going to be talking a little bit about her experience about education. We actually came here with Education for Life for the project you are running and you are starting off. We actually have many programs here, right?
Yes.
Many things in running. And one of them is Barn School. They're going to be starting hopefully in January, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's a brand new school. And I would probably just start maybe introducing yourself a little bit and telling us how many kids you have first of all and what is your experience in education. And then talking to us about the different projects you have, like whether it's right now Learning in the Woods, City School, Barn School,
Yeah.
and probably many others that she's gonna talk to us about.
Okay.
So.
Well, thanks for interviewing me. It's an honor to actually have someone, be curious about your life and how it all came about. So things that I've done, my take on education is really a reflection of my life. It's integrated in what I love to do and what I'm passionate about. I've always sort of been curious or studied or been involved in things that bring out the best in people. Or I've spent a lot of time learning about how to help people achieve whatever they want to achieve or flourish or reach their full potential, however they define it. And after trying out some different, or exploring that in different ways in university, I had an opportunity to do some really neat jobs, and but I kept feeling myself being pulled back to education. So I went and got my teaching degree, and right away I got like a dream teaching job, and while I had the dream teaching job, I've been really lucky. I feel like I've had a lot of dream jobs right away every time.
Was teaching your very first direction into studies?
Well, when I was a kid, I always knew that I liked working with children,
Mm-hmm.
and I was definitely interested in teaching. But then for university, I decided to do kinesiology, which is, I think, similar to what Katia did.
Yeah,
so it was a lot of learning about how people, well, I studied it in lots of different contexts, I guess, but one of the contexts that I did was psychology and sociology, about how to support people to achieve whatever goals they're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So coaching and that sort of thing. But then I also did a lot of community sport and what sort of draws a community together and what's enjoyable about doing activities together. And that was really interesting. The things that were enjoyable weren't what you see in a minor league hockey. The things that drew people together to repeatedly play a sport because of their own free will was this sense of like creativity in the game, or switching the rules a little bit so that everyone felt like they had an equal opportunity to play. And so those sort of concepts stayed with me. And I was talking to Katia about this also. After doing kinesiology, I went and did a master's of business. And within my MBA, I also looked at the same sort of concepts, but from that more organizational angle.
What did bring you to make the MBA?
Well, I think I just felt like I wasn't ready to go out into the workforce. And I didn't really know what I liked to do, so I just kept studying the stuff that I did like. And I think that at that time, at that age, there was some prestige around having an MBA.
Oh, there is still.
There's
so expensive.
Okay. I haven't really paid much attention to it since then. So when I was doing my MBA, another really great learning experience for me, and I learned about why involving people in organizations, involving people in companies, and you know, creating alignment with people, and also coaching. So within an organizational environment, how to support people so that they can feel like they are, like this is the type of work that they want to do. And then I got a consulting job right away after my MBA, and I loved the work, and I was not, that was not my environment. Really competitive. And the company that I worked for, I was also young and new, so they just put you on any project. But I found myself being asked to work on projects that ethically weren't a fit for me. Yeah. So I pretty quickly realized that although this pays really well, I like some of the work. I just couldn't stay there. I was going to, I felt myself sort of shrinking. And so I did teachers college, and that's sort of what I thought I would always do anyway. And I got a job right away, which was such a huge blessing because it was really hard to get a teaching job at the time that I was coming out of school. And I loved working with the kids, loved the families in my community, loved my coworkers, and yet I still felt like it was suffocating. There were many days I would drive to school crying. And
Why is that?
at the time I didn't know. And I thought it was me. I thought there was something wrong with me. And so yeah, because I thought it was me, I just kept thinking that I had to do something different. What am I doing wrong here, that this isn't working? And then I had my son. And when I had my son, I didn't know the term attachment parenting. Later I found out that what I was doing was in line with attachment parenting, that label. But I just like that gentleness and that connection. And I started to read a lot of different books related to that line of parenting. So like positive parenting, conscious parenting, those sorts of themes. And as I was doing this, it was really sort of resonating with me and everything that I had learned. And in Canada, in Ontario, I went back to work after my 1 year maternity leave, and I'm so thankful that we have a 1 year, and I think it should be longer, but I'm so thankful that
we're really lucky to have it.
Yes.
Not many countries have it.
Exactly. But having that 1 year to bond with him, and having that 1 year break with no expectations on you except to just give this little guy a great start. What a huge blessing. And I took that time to really, like I was reborn. With this baby, I was reborn, and I had a chance to really reflect on everything in life and everything that he was going to be exposed to. And because I had left a teaching job and I knew I was going back to a teaching job, everything that I was taking in about parenting and about, my son and wanting to give him this nurturing start, I was already thinking about how I would apply it in my classroom. Yeah. So although I wasn't ready to leave my son yet, and that was really hard, I was really curious to apply some of this in the classroom. And in that particular year, I was teaching kindergarten, which is my favorite age group to teach. And it's also in Ontario. The curriculum is most free, so it's more self-directed education as opposed to a strict curriculum.
And when does it start here? Kindergarten from 4?
Yeah, age 4. And so I was able to apply a lot of things that I had been reading about and had been curious about. And I thought the results were amazing. When I was able to just, it was just about love. When I took away expectations about what curriculum needed to happen, or expectations I felt like I was an umbrella over top of the kids, trying to shield them. But when I felt like I was shielding them and I'm watching them grow and develop, it was so beautiful. And kids that, it was especially noticeable in kids who were already on the track to being diagnosed for ADHD, kids who had anxiety, kids who were...
So that early age, they're already diagnosed or labeled with ADHD, etc.
Well, they're not labeled yet. They have to wait until they're 6 to get labeled. But,
to gain the label.
Yeah, to gain the label. But, or if parents want, they can go the private route and get their child diagnosed early. And there was even some kids that I was saying to the parents, yeah, I think that one probably does. But there were lots of kids that I would look at and I would think, you just want to run around. You just want to play on your terms. Yeah, carpet time is not going to work for you, but it doesn't mean that you have ADHD. And kids who were going through traumatic family experiences, like just having this space where they could just breathe and just play and learn on their terms, at their speed, and not worry about the things that they're not learning yet. Like the behavior change from that group that I could sort of shield compared to the other classes where I was trying to follow what the curriculum was saying I needed to do. It just felt so different. It felt so right. And so I at that time I was still thinking, okay, so what kind of changes can I make within my school board so that we can have more of this? And I really quickly, I don't know, I got discouraged pretty early on. And I don't know if it was, it was my perception anyway. I thought I could spend my whole career in teaching, advocating for these changes, and I might spend my whole career to get that change to happen. Or I could take myself out of that system and do something different. And I am actually a really big advocate for a public system. Like I want all options to be truly choices for people, and I don't like that in Ontario there aren't very many options for people. And quite often the people who most would benefit from having alternatives, they're not as accessible to them. So it's been a real struggle for me to step back and do something different, but I was still crying every day driving to school. And
but you knew why at that point.
At that point I knew why. Yeah, I knew that having this curriculum imposed on kids some kids were fine with it, but there were a whole lot who weren't.
Because at the time you were teaching kids in kindergarten only from 4 to 6?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I had taught other grades also. So I had a sense of how they arrive and how it sort of changes as they get older. And some of the kids that I just loved so dearly, I would watch them shrink as they got older, and I would watch their voice shrivel. And my whole reason for being in this world was actually helping people to flourish, and here I am, part of a system that people are shrinking, and I felt powerless to change the system. And so by this time I'm pregnant with my second, and I asked Steve, my husband, if we could sell everything and invest everything into something different, and he said sure. Now by that time I had actually already started We Learn Naturally. I actually started it sort of like you guys have, as like this space to talk about these sorts of alternative ideas. And so when my middle child was, I think when she was about 6 months, we started to look for properties, because our idea was if we could find a property that we could also live on, we might be able to make a go of it, as opposed to renting. And I'd also been doing some research about alternatives and how to actually help them to grow and foster. And one of the biggest reasons for them there were two main reasons for them to not grow. One of them was financial, so it's really hard to make it sustainable, especially in the beginning. And the other piece was community. It's so scary to start an alternative and to be at the beginning parts of an alternative because not only do you have those group dynamics and trying to get everyone aligned and do we agree that this is how we want to move forward, but you're also doing something that's so different from mainstream that it just feels really scary. So we decided that we would sell everything, try something new. We bought a property. At that time, we were really naive, and we thought that.
When was that? How long ago?
So that would have been almost 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we started looking after Christmas when my middle child was 6 or 7.
Okay.
So yeah. Then. At that time, I still thought that I might go back to school, like I might go back to teaching just to have income.
Mm-hmm.
But then as my son was getting older and I was finishing up my maternity leave, he was supposed to be starting kindergarten. And having left as a kindergarten teacher, I just knew that he would probably be labeled as ADHD, and whether he would be or not, it didn't matter to me because whether he's labeled ADHD or labeled anxiety or labeled with sensitivities, I mean, the point is that you still want to support that person.
Sure.
And some people really appreciate having gone on meds for ADHD, but I just wanted to see what happened because I also knew that given enough time, a lot of ADHD traits you can grow out of them. So it's controversial.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the post that I posted actually a couple of days ago, a week ago maybe, about ADHD. When I got to hear from another mother about the kids being ADHD or being labeled, what I prefer to phrase it. I don't know, I have my opinion that ADHD, everyone can be ADHD. If you are forced to do something you are not interested, you're going to be unfocused about that thing. So, and it's very unfortunate that kids now, or that we start already with kids, labeling them, anxiety, ADHD, or whatever it is, when in fact it's just about looking to them and giving them what they really need.
Yes.
And I think that's really the point. It's not about seeing how they are and labeling because they are not conforming to all the others or to the curriculum. But it's just about seeing what they really are inside and just supporting them in developing that. And then they will not be PhD. They're gonna be fantastic in math, or they're gonna be fantastic in arts, and that's the effect at the end. And it's very unfortunate that even going on maths. I mean, I think it's ridiculous when there are kids at 4 or 5 or they on maths because they are labeled that way. And even I discovered, and it's in my post, that the doctor that I forgot the name that has actually came up with the label of ADHD has been after some years saying that it actually doesn't exist. So he's very controversial even on the ADHD itself, but because of the pharmaceutical industry has been, as soon as it came out, running on it, and so nowadays there are many psychologists and psychiatrists and physicians that they go with it because it's makes good income out of it.
Yeah. Well, I've met some people who have said I'm ADHD, and I recognize, like, when growing up, I would have called them like a type A personality, and maybe it's just someone who needed to be more active or needed to move at their own pace. And so I agree with you that for me, the bottom line is we're still trying to support the person in whatever ways they want to be supported. So I'm looking at my son and I'm recognizing how, for a variety of reasons, he is going to not flourish in this kindergarten environment. And I had just read Peter Gray's book, Free to Learn, and I knew that we were starting this school after looking around and seeing that there weren't alternatives that were really jiving with me, and Steve was on board. And so then Steve's parents had this little piece of property that they weren't doing anything with. They had tried to sell, it didn't really sell, and I just sort of asked, do you think that they would let me run like a children's play group there, outdoor children's play group? And Steve said yes, probably his parents would. And so Megan and I actually started to sort of plan out what would learning in the woods look like. And prior to that, I had been doing some nature play groups that we created a little group called Little Seeds. And so we were going to different locations and giving the kids just opportunities to meet with other kids in different natural settings. So we would try to stay at one setting for a couple of weeks just so that it would start to become familiar. And so that sometimes they would have a sense of boredom and then they'd discover something new. So some of the parents who were really understanding that philosophy, I asked them, would you be willing to do learning in the woods? And Tanya was one of the people who was really keen on that, and she's now the director of Learning in the Woods. And so Learning in the Woods, I think Learning in the Woods really worked with a lot of people and still does because of that nature connection. I think as a society, we're starting to realize how disconnected we are from nature. Yeah, like we're mammals. We're mammals, and yet we don't treat our children like mammals, and we don't even treat ourselves like mammals. And if we want to be healthy and happy, that nature connection piece is important. So Learning in the Woods has really resonated with a lot of people. And at the same time when I started Learning in the Woods, Facebook was just starting to get popular here, and there was a lot of Facebook posts from like schools from Finland or Sweden or other places that had forest schools. So we got the label as forest school, although we never intended to be a forest school, and we still don't necessarily subscribe to all the things that a forest school is. We definitely consider ourselves to be self-directed education. That's the main thing that we are. And for us, self-directed education also incorporates like conscious parenting or nonviolent communication. So some of the offshoots of things that we've done have been related to supporting parents in nonviolent communication, and we're trickling over now to start to do a little bit of consulting. Consulting is a weird word, but more parent support, more adult support.
How do you do that?
Good question. Yeah. So we've attracted mostly moms, but we've done self-connection in the woods and just self-connection groups. We've done...
So like you do seminars, you do courses, what do you propose exactly?
Well, now that we're going to have our own space, it'll be more feasible to offer more support. Ontario, it's so hard to find spaces for free. Because especially like we've been willing to give this away for free for a while, just because we believe in it so strongly. But a lot of it is really just supporting parents to start to listen to the little voice inside them, because we're so disconnected from nature. We're told, like if you've gone through traditional school, you were told when to go to the washroom, when to eat, even what to eat, what order to eat it in. And you start to lose that connection to yourself. And each time you can listen to that little voice inside yourself, it's like saying, I matter. It's like self-love. And each time you listen to that little voice, just to do little things, just recognizing in yourself what you need, and maybe you can't give yourself what you need in that moment, but just recognizing what you need, it strengthens that voice, and then you're better able to listen to the voice of your child when they're expressing their needs.
I find it's very interesting what you say, because I said it many times actually in different posts I wrote about, and I said it, etc. That as I've seen also with our kids, and I see it on myself as well, and on Katya, and it's very difficult for us as parents to first of all understand that and recognize it, but to do something against it, let's say, to cure ourselves, because we have been through the entire process. And so for me, as I said, I've seen that the more you stay into the mainstream school with the system where they tell you everything, from morning to evening what to do, even sometimes after school with the homeschools and the homeworks and everything, and the more you stay into the system, which is kindergarten, primary, secondary, high school eventually, so it's quite a bunch of years, and then you get to the point where you're really so disconnected that you don't even hear that voice anymore.
Yes.
So you, as an
And you're
adult,
just crying on your way to work every day.
yeah, because you end up making something that somebody else decided, or you decided, but not really because you believe in it or you wanted to do it. People making PhD as a physicians, doctors, or lawyers, whatever, they end up in a system that why they chose that, because of parents, because of pressure, because of society, because of success, money related most of the time, and but they end up doing something that they don't love, they are not passionate about. And for us to recognize that as parents, it's sometimes painful. So we maybe hear that voice, and maybe people listening to you, reading a post that I post, and it's like millions of things that there are out there. It's painful. So you just you want better to blind it out and say, no, I better go on with the kind of living I make. But they're also damaging not only themselves first of all, but also the kids. So if you recognize that, and then to make the switch to, okay, I acknowledge that, and I want to shift, and I don't want to make, to cause the same damage according to my kids. That's really, really hard to do. Like every change is hard to do. So it's I mean, resonates with what I believe as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I would even argue that, at least here in Canada, because we have a 1-year maternity leave, a lot of kids go into childcare from ages 1 to 4. So as a kindergarten teacher, I could always tell the kids who were either in a large childcare, or I guess I could tell the ones who were in a large childcare. They were just used to the routine already. Like it was a different teacher, different routine, but it took them no time at all to get used to it. And the kids who either came from like a small childcare setting, or they had a grandparent looking after them, or a stay-at-home parent looking after them, they always really struggled to get into this routine of school. And I would watch this, and at the time I thought it was a really good thing that the kids could get into a routine so quickly. Like, shouldn't we all be doing that? But it was when I had my own son and realized the reason that they're struggling to get into this routine is because this routine isn't matching what humans are supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be attached to our caregivers. We're not supposed to, or for some kids, it is exciting and new to go off and meet someone new, and they feel totally fine with it. But for a lot of kids, it takes a long time for them to warm up to a new person, warm up to a new environment. And in a kindergarten classroom, there's a lot of other kids, and yeah, there's just I've gone off on a tangent here, but
no, but I'm following you very much. It's
I think that at least in Ontario, it starts so early where we start to dampen a child's voice, and
I don't think it's only in Ontario. I think it's pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
And the style of parenting that is so popular in mainstream parenting dampens a child's voice from the time they're a baby. So along with all the other education stuff I was doing, I was also, I have my attachment parenting educator certificate and a natural sleep certificate. And so I was supporting parents as they tried to figure out, how do I listen to my child's voice? How do I honor my child's voice? And the thing that kept becoming apparent to me, and is maybe the reason why I took a step back from it, is that how can a parent honor a child's voice if he can't honor their own?
Exactly. I wanted just to ask you, the child's voice, you mean your inner child voice? Or because that's at the end, that's it?
Yeah, and that was the work that I realized a lot of parents were struggling with. Like, you have this new baby and great intentions of trying to support this new baby, but all of a sudden, you know, there's so much work that you need to do as a parent, and you've maybe never been exposed to this idea that your voice matters, or that you know, that can be really painful for people. It brings up a lot of past history and you know, lots of discussions about perfectionism or depression or anxiety, self-esteem, and all of these issues were coming up, and it's a big thing to unravel. And so while we have these educational programs for kids that we run and create, there's just such a big piece that we are trying to figure out how to offer this to parents, because the two go together.
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here.
Because in fact, it makes perfectly sense to me, everything you're saying, because again, it's very important. Before, you know, ideally in a utopic world, would be every parent would have such an education that allows them to be completely in touch with their inner child, that when they become parents, they are so connected with themselves that they perfectly understand what the child needs, and they nurture what he needs.
Mm-hmm.
But in fact, what we have been through, and it's just, you know, 2, 3, 4 generations back maybe, that everything clicked so much, you know, from post-industrial
Yes.
revolution, etc., that we are into this system, like, you know, like mainstream school is proposing us. And I don't want to sound like, you know, I'm just against mainstream school. And there are, like you were saying before, there are different realities for different people.
Mm-hmm.
And for some people, they just flourish and they excel in whatever they do in the mainstream school. So for those people, it's perfect that there is such a system, and they become fantastic doctors because it's what they love, for example. But it's for all the others that it's not right, the system. So for all the others, it's right that there is options out there. And what we really want to concentrate on, you with your school towards kids, and also to propose something to parents. And we want really to work on the adult side. So proposing teachers and parents, hopefully before they become parents, but it's, you know, it's difficult, but we can get there slowly, you know, step by step, because everyone is at a different point of awareness. But to really work on yourself first, because if you don't work on yourself, and we're seeing self-esteem, anxiety, and so many things that we repressed throughout the life, you can't really listen to your kids. And it resonates with me, and probably with so many parents, because as with you as a teacher, before and after you had your child. Because until a certain point, if there is not that certain thing that makes a click, you don't realize you are into that. You have been so used to being that routine, and you're so disconnected, you don't even realize it.
I was crying every day on my way to work,
and
I thought it was me. Exactly. I thought it was me.
Yeah. And as a parent also, I mean, we had experience with our first 2 children, where we were making things, but not out of what we believed inside, out of what other people were telling us, or we were reading about, or a doctor were telling us that that's the right way to put a child in the other room, because they have to be independent and be able to sleep in their own room. Why is that? I mean, it doesn't make sense to me now. Yeah. But back then I didn't think about it. I was not so connected with myself to understand that was something wrong to do. The right thing to do is what every mother is doing in this world, and pretty much every animal, which is taking care of your child and your small puppy, you know, and holding him in the arms all the time as much as you can. And we see it now with Axel so much.
I bet.
As soon as you put him down, he cries. Unless he's really so deep asleep that he doesn't even realize. Otherwise, he wants to be in the arms because he wants this connection. And that's so natural. It's all what they need.
Yeah.
And but what we hear around is that if you make that, you damage the child, which is nonsense. But most of the people they kind of believe it because it's more comfortable. You don't have to carry him around all the time. So yeah.
And we're not used to seeing it either. And so while I look at what we're doing and I want to create these programs so that more families who right now feel like, so to me, homeschooling, unschooling is actually the ultimate.
Mm-hmm.
Having kids right in the community, having kids learning alongside their parents and alongside all of the people that love them and care about them, to me, that's the ultimate.
Again, it's what happened until a couple of centuries ago.
Right.
Nothing more
so
than
that is what I think I would love for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
However, I recognize that it feels like a really big leap for a lot of families. So
and there is fear underneath.
A lot of
from the parents that they fear that kids they will not be able to enter society.
Right.
If they are grown up in that way.
Right. So what I see myself doing, or what I would like to be doing, or what I would like to be offering, is a bridge. So while I think that that is the ultimate, and sometimes I think, what am I doing all of this for? I could just focus on my kids and we could just be happy and be done with
That's
it.
what we have been thinking about, because many parents, and I said it this before, but many parents they are just maybe traveling or maybe just in their surroundings, picking the right school, so going around and searching within the neighborhood what school is best for them.
Yeah.
What we wanted to do, it was pretty much the same thing, just we expanded it to the globe, larger scale. But from that point, that we said, okay, let's go around and see what's best for our family, for our kids. Then we said, well, don't we share it? So that's pretty much the same thing. We thought, well, it would be very valuable to share what we learn and to share what we see and experience in your school, in other schools, and interview people, parents, kids, and really give this kind of bridge to understand. And maybe it's a bridge within themselves, to reconnect with themselves and understand how they can be better parents and better teacher, because it's not only for parents, it's also for teacher, because many, I believe, like you did, they're maybe not crying every day, but if not physically, but something is off, exactly, and they feel it, and they enter the classroom not with the joy they should be entering the classroom. And the reason behind it, I believe, is just because of their inner disconnection. Because if they understand how to reconnect with themselves, they understand who they have in front. And so it's we are on the same bridge, so we can build it together.
So I guess I see what we're doing as a bridge, and part of it is that I actually just want to help these other families, so that if you're like, for the kids that I've taught, I wanted to create this space where it would work for them. For families that I know who feel like this isn't working, I don't have an alternative, I wanted to say, hey, I can help create an alternative. But then as I've started to do it, I've also realized, it's for my kids too. This is like my way of making the world a better place for my kids. It's my expression of creating a more peaceful world. It's my expression of nonviolence. I still have a lot to learn, which is what's so cool about
I think it's important, because I speak for myself here, but there is also a lot of fear all the time, because it's not like, I don't believe we are fantastic parents and we do everything perfect. Every day we have sometimes fears, and we fear what they're going to be doing, and is it the right way we're teaching them. And I see so many different systems and philosophies in every single family I enter. But at the end of the day, I think the right one is the one that resonates with you, and especially with your kids. So supporting that and embracing those fears, and embracing the fact that we are all having them, and supporting each other, that's the most important thing, I think.
Absolutely. Those fears show us what we should explore next.
Exactly, and challenges, they are making us grow. So embrace that, and just go ahead and support each other. And if you don't know how to deal with a certain thing, you reach out to you, to me, to whatever. And if we have the answer, if not, we're going to be finding it somewhere else. But I think it's very important. While just entering a mainstream school because society is doing that, and therefore you make it with your kids, like we did at the beginning, honestly, most of the time it's not the right choice. So it's good to just be aware and think.
The point is to make conscious choices. So even if you decide, you know what, I'm going to formula feed my baby, conscious choice. Even if you're going to decide, you know what, I think that my kid would really thrive in a public school, wouldn't it be great if that was a conscious choice amongst several
choices? And it can
choices?
really be because you are, as an intelligent person, as we all are, because you recognize that your child really needs that. Needs that kind of environment of structure, but don't just make it because everyone else is doing it.
Or that there's nothing else available. You know, feeling stuck that this is the only thing. Somehow I have to make my kid fit into this system.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Erin, because it's really a nice conversation, and we share a lot of points here, and we discovered being on the same page as well. So
Yeah,
which is
nice to see you here.
And what we really like is to starting from this, this kind of conversation, and probably gonna have more in the future. And I invite people to visit your website. Maybe you can say what are the websites you are.
Yeah, you know what? If you just start off at wewernaturally.com, we've got all the other websites linked to that one. So.
Okay, perfect. So that's definitely for the people that are around here in the region of Ontario, Barlington, etc. And but for anything else, anyway, we're gonna be finding information on education for life. And I guess we're gonna have some more conversations like this one today, and probably very soon coming up with something that we're going to be able to offer to teachers and parents to develop our skills. I say our skills also for ourselves all the time to improve. And we're going to hear each other again, even though we're leaving Canada soon, but we're going to be in touch. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.